Greetings to the Lunar Manifesting Matrix. This is Elizabeth Shermer with an intuitive reading for the Lunar Matrix on Thursday, March 15th. Last night, we moved into the last quarter phase of this month's lunar cycle. And so this coming week, leading up to next Thursday's new moon, is a time to work with the energies of the last quarter moon, which support forward movement in your life. And especially this movement happens through your connection to a larger community. This stage of the lunar cycle supports a really important aspect that's going on this year in the Water Dragon year, which is releasing the past in order to embrace a new future that's being born. And there are special energies this week and special opportunities for you to push forward or move forward your personal vision of the future, leaving behind what's obsolete, both from family patterns or larger social patterns or circles that no longer serve your highest needs. And then it's also important to realize that you can't do this in isolation, and there are special opportunities this week to anchor with others. This is a time to unite for larger support in this process. You can't do it alone. For today's intuitive reading, I asked for guidance to help each of us experience the special potentials that are available in these coming days for moving forward in our lives. I threw a 3-card body, mind, spirit spread with the Thoth Tarot deck. And the first thing I want to say is this first pattern that showed up, which are 2 7s, which emerged. The card to the left in the body position and the card in the middle in the mind position are both 7s. 7 of Cups and 7 of Discs. And these cards both emerged reversed, which is significant. So for right now, I'm going to turn them over and just talk a little bit about the meanings of these cards, and then I'll specifically talk about the special aspect of the reversal, which is significant for today's guidance. First, the body position, the 7 of Cups. In this deck, it's called debauch. And what it refers to is the ways that we get bogged down emotionally. And from this place of emotional fatigue, which in its most extreme form we call depression, we resort to old patterns of self-soothing that don't ultimately serve us. This is a card that always calls for new patterns of self-care that raise our frequency or raise our vibration into higher alignment with who we really are. For example, if I'm tired and want to feel refreshed, I have a choice of whether I want to eat sugar or watch television, which are sort of low frequency ways of self-soothing, or whether I want to go for a walk or engage in another activity that will actually help with regeneration, maybe doing a tarot reading. This card represents all forms of self-sabotage, from watching too much television to the extreme forms of addiction and other sabotaging patterns of self-care. This card in the body position today came up reversed. So I'm going to put it back in the reversed position. And what this is meaning now is that in this point of time, remember the intention for the reading was what are the highest opportunities right now. There's a deep opportunity that's quite strong this week to release these patterns that are held in our body that lead us to go anchor in the past rather than moving forward. So there's opportunities to release self-sabotaging patterns in exchange for patterns of self-care. And when we engage in those patterns of self-care, what happens when this card reverses is it supports us in moving forward. The 7s are related to the Chariot. So these cards today, both 7s, are talking about opportunities we have within this forward momentum of the Dragon year to move into the future. So when we release the patterns of the past and care for ourselves in healthy ways, then what happens is we activate deep emotional inspiration and joy and a certainty and clarity about moving forward, as well as frequencies of creative inspiration, which is all about that vision of what you see your future can be. That's the body position. The mind position in the center, the 7 of Discs, remember, was reversed. I turned it up now. It's called failure. And what it represents is fear of failure. The fear of failure in the mind position means that we're holding a fear in our mind that things won't work out. And this, again, is associated with the past. And so the card coming up reversed means that in this time, we have the opportunity to release old fears and to be aware when fears activate. We can release them now through an act of determination and clarity about the opportunities. And when this density releases, what takes its place is a strength and a confidence about moving forward. And with our mind, we can access our will in creative ways to move forward in patterns that will serve our highest good. So these cards, as the reversals, indicate a lot of support right now from our higher self and all of our guides and teachers. The card to the right in the third position represents spiritual support for this process, and the card is the Ace of Wands. And the Ace of Wands represents inspiration, the gift of and birth of new creative inspiration, creative energy, creative power. It represents all those aspects of spiritual support that light us with fire. So realize that in these coming days, starting now, whenever you hear this reading, you have access to spiritual support and will and confidence and power to activate your ability to separate from old patterns, which we called pain body, and move forward in new ways. So I was inspired at the end to draw another card, draw a couple more cards for extra special information. And these two cards, the first, the Eight of Cups, which came up also reversed. The Eight of Cups is another card that talks about releasing patterns that don't serve us. The Eight of Cups is called indolence, and what it refers to is the state of emotional burnout. What happens when we overgive or overextend ourselves and don't have enough left for ourselves. When this card is reversed, the eights talk about balance and prosperity and abundant well-being. So when we release those patterns of overgiving and overextending and learn to give and receive in mutual ways, we are in a place of full expansion, have the potential for full expansion. So a final piece of spiritual support here is the reminder to connect to our community, to connect to friends, to speak, to use your will, this spiritual aspect of gift of the will, in active ways in the world. Extend to your community and ground this in a larger field. And then the final card is the Fool, which the Fool represents the gift of unlimited potential and the birth of new beginnings. The Fool is the birth of the whole entire deck of Tarot. In this deck, the Fool is not represented as a jester or joker, but rather a strong, mighty being with full creative potential and trust, no fear, trust in whatever comes. So I leave you with that feeling of inspiration. I often talk about this water dragon year as the year of the Fool because we're riding the waves of unlimited potential this year. And so when we can release, we can find the courage and will to release the past and access the inspiration and support that's available, we will have that experience of limitless potential and joy and exhilaration that are available. So I end the session today with blessings and intentions for the highest and best for all, for each of you listening. And I want to remind you that this energy and these potentials indicated in this reading are available always, with special support over the coming few days. Next week's new moon is Thursday, and you can look forward to a special new moon reading next week with the Lunar Manifesting Matrix. So right now I want to say goodbye and have a wonderful week. Blessings to all. This is Elizabeth Shermer with the Lunar Manifesting Matrix.